The theme of today's presentation is all about going beyond try harder, unlocking genuine motivation in kids with ADHD. For this presentation, we're going to start by looking at acts of motivation, specifically expectancy value theory and goal orientation. In this case overview, the motivation problem is really something that is ongoing and surrounds task completion. A little bit of background, there have been difficulties in early academic history. Challenges began in kindergarten during remote learning. And the broader impact that this is having is that difficulties are extending beyond school into everyday routines at home. And so the key theme that we're going to be looking at here is the struggle is not just about ability, it's really about starting, persisting, and finishing tasks consistently. So another piece of helpful information about this particular student is that there was an ADHD diagnosis in 2025. And so why does this diagnosis matter? Well, the diagnosis gives us a different look into what the motivation might be for this particular student. And just knowing that this student has ADHD is not enough because we also have to look at motivation and task completion and working on some long-term skill goals and overall not quick fixes, something that is going to be long-lasting with this particular student. So some things that have already been tried with this student is positive reinforcement. The issue with positive reinforcement is that it seems to work briefly and then it loses its effectiveness. Behavior modification strategies have worked at school, but they aren't always working at home. And so that's been unsuccessful in creating some consistent, lasting change. Medication has helped with performance at school, but really has had limited impact on any kind of motivation or behavior at home. And the main challenge now is really working on task completion and the repeated cycle of learning and relearning basic routines. So with this stage one, we're really taking a look at the expectancy value theory. And this is focusing on two main student questions. Can I do this and why should I do this? And these are really at the core of what is going on with this particular student. Can they do the things that are expected of them? And then why should they do the things that are expected of them? So when we look at utility value, what we're really looking at is why does this task matter? Is it helping you to reach something that you care about, right? How can we connect the motivation to goals? And for this particular student, the summer focus is really building consistent task completion through utility value and reinforcement. So when we look at that crossover idea, what we're really looking at is where do ability and beliefs come together to produce outcomes. So a major intersection occurs when the belief in their ability connects to the expectancy of success and outcomes. And in this case, with this particular student, that's been a very difficult thing to master. And so strategies have to build both competence and confidence, not just compliance. We want to make sure that these are skills that are sticking. These are skills that are going to be long term for this particular student, not something that is just going to be a one-time compliance. So, what actually has motivated? In this case, with this particular student, the strong reinforcers were really time with friends and new independence. In this case, we're looking at a 10-year-old, a 10-year-old that is about to start middle school. And so having that independence, time with friends, and being able to do some new things and have some new social access was really important as a motivator. So, one of the main barriers with this particular student was really task paralysis. It's not that they did not have the ability to do things. So, when we look at that question of can I do it? Yes, they could, but can they start it? No. So, task paralysis is really a shutdown response when a task feels too big, it feels too unclear, or too emotionally overwhelming. And that was really something that had become a barrier for this particular student. And so, an instructional takeaway with this is really looking at the task size and increasing the clarity. So, when we look at the tasks that the student was doing, we had to break them down into very simple steps. We had to be very clear and direct with what was being asked of them. So, the major motivator, the major event was really earning a phone. So, like many students who are about to enter middle school, having that access to a phone, access to their friends was very important. And so, that was really a major motivator for trying to change some behaviors and to, start reaching some common goals. So when we look at expectancy value in practice, what we're really doing is we are connecting the belief in can I do this to the outcome in will I do this? And so what we find with expectancy value is that confidence increases when the effort that the student puts in leads to real results. And so that's something we're going to be taking a look at. The long-term goal is really about internalizing, right? I can do hard things, not just a single reward system, not a system where maybe, you get a sticker on a chart for each thing that you've done, but really trying to internalize those goals and make them part of an everyday process. So when we look at the economics of motivation, right, we know that goals are going to be paid for with behavioral costs. There's always a behavioral cost that goes along with our goals. So what are we working towards? Why are we working towards these goals? And the goals for this particular student required effort. They required time. They required persistence. This wasn't something that was just going to be done in a day. This was something that was going to have to become a learned behavior. It was something that was going to be worked on day after day after day, and it was going to require consistency. And for this particular student, they needed support to tolerate that cost until it finally paid off. So, in the case of this student, there were a lot of setbacks. So, the process did include meltdowns, family frustration. Unfortunately, behaviors don't always change in a day, even when we have goals. A goal that a student really wants to achieve, sometimes those behaviors that are very ingrained are hard to change. And the motivation wasn't always stable, right? Behavior change often looks messy before there's success. And this was something that was experienced quite a bit with this particular student. So when we look at the summary in stage one, the two core questions that we were looking at with expectancy value theory really center on, can I do this and why should I do this? So in the case of this student, the can I do this is, can I master some very basic behaviors? Can I do these behaviors consistently with that motivation that's being built in? And why should I do this is really working towards those goals. And in this case, the main goal was access to a cell phone, access to their friends, some independence. And this progress required building ability beliefs through scaffolding and success experiences. This was not an easy path. This was not something that was going to be done quickly. We also had to clarify the value of tasks beyond immediate rewards. These were rewards that were going to take time. This wasn't a reward that was going to happen immediately. So in the second part of this, we're taking a look at goals and goal orientation. And why do we need goals? So when we're taking a look at motivation, many times our goals can really act as something that helps with that motivation. Goals help regulate behavior and learning by giving direction and measurable targets. In the case of this student, the goal was independence and use of a cell phone. And specific goals produce better outcomes than vague goals. So if a vague goal was just, hey, you're going to have some more independence, that's not going to get the outcome that we want to see. So when we put in a specific goal, you can have time on a phone where you can talk to your friends. You can have some independent behavior. Those are specific and those are going to be something going to help. Um, Another big issue that we had with this particular student was the mindset shift. Because one of the things that we see with students, especially our students with ADHD, is that they can sometimes have a very fixed mindset. And what we really wanted to do was to work with this child and let them know that the situation was not too much. The situation was not unchangeable. It was not too much, and they could achieve their goals. So the goal sometimes needs to be shifted from a growth-oriented stance, right? They haven't mastered this skill yet. That is really important, especially in a child with ADHD, right? We're not giving up. This is something we're working on long term, and it is the yet part that's very important. Building the bridge to yet means framing struggle as part of a learning process. It is not failure. And language and framing can directly shape the persistence of the student. And that was something that we saw in this instance. So one important thing that had to be done was designing a system. So step one for this particular student was to reset the environment. So one of the things that was going to need to be done as a part of earning this independence and use of a phone was really being able to take care of some basic things in their life and a few essential routines. And so the main routines really required a reset of some spaces. So particularly in the case of this student, their bedroom. That needed to be cleaned and organized. This was something that the child could not do on their own because of task paralysis and just overwhelm. It was something that had to be helped with. So that was step one, right? Reset the environment. And then step two, maintain some essential routines. And by maintaining these essential routines, there could then be a system built to prevent returning to an overwhelming state that was going to trigger that task paralysis again. So the daily targets, there were 3 clear checkable goals. So once everything had been reset, there were 3 daily checks, and they were focused on first, trash. So this seems like a very simple task, but making sure all trash was put away in a trash can. Not only did this go for trash, this was also any dirty dishes, anything from snacks, anything that should not be left on surfaces in the room. The second daily check focused on dirty clothes. So are dirty clothes put in a hamper? Are they up off the floor? So that was check number 2. And then check number 3 are clean clothes put away. So those were the 3 daily targets and our 3 goals. So one of the things that was very important here is that For this particular student, we wanted to see some observed outcomes. The first observed outcome was increased independence. Working on these basic life skills was very important, even though there was a goal helping to motivate them. This is something that can be continued from the summer into the school year. And then the growing confidence, that confidence that they are able to consistently be able to take care of themselves and their space. And by doing these things, that has now earned them the use of a phone, contact with friends, and some independent behaviors that will help for them to be able to grow and change and hopefully be successful in the future.